They vanished from history, scattered among the nations, forgotten by time. But thousands of years ago it was written, "I will take the Israelites out of the nations where they have gone. I will gather them from all around and bring them back into their own land." Ezekiel 37:21. It seemed impossible. No nation in human history had ever returned after total exile. No people had reclaimed their ancient homeland after centuries in the dust. And yet Israel rose, a nation reborn from ruins. A prophecy fulfilled before the eyes of the world. But this was only the beginning. Israel is not just another country. It is God's prophetic clock, and it is ticking. Every conflict, every political shift, every rising threat in the Middle East is a signal, a movement in the divine timeline. The events unfolding are not random. They are written, foretold. The dry bones have come together. The breath has entered. But the vision shown to Ezekiel has not yet reached its conclusion. What comes next will shake nations, divide kingdoms, and test the hearts of all humanity. Stay until the end, because the destiny of Israel, from exile to resurrection, from silence to prophecy, is unfolding now, and the end is closer than we imagine. More than 2,500 years ago, the land of Israel was no longer free. It had been conquered, divided, and broken. 10 of its tribes, the northern kingdom, had already been destroyed by the Assyrians over a century earlier. What remained was Judah, weakened, politically unstable, spiritually corrupt. Its kings, Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, Zedekiah, were no shepherds of righteousness, but men lost in ambition, idol worship, and betrayal. The temple still stood, but its holiness had faded. The place once filled with the glory of God had become polluted by idols, injustice, and greed. What was once sacred had become profane. The prophet Jeremiah had warned of judgment, but few listened. And then, just as he prophesied, it came. In 597 BC, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, returned to Jerusalem, not to destroy it yet, but to send a message. Thousands were taken into exile. Among them was a young priest in training, only 25 years old, Ezekiel. He came from a long line of priests, born with the expectation that at 30 he would begin his sacred ministry in the temple of the Lord, as commanded by the law of Moses. Numbers 4:3. But instead of robes and incense, Ezekiel found himself in chains, ripped from his destiny and cast into a foreign land. He was taken to a place called Tel Abib, along the banks of the Kebar River in Babylon. For 5 long years, Ezekiel lived among a people in despair. Some still clung to hope that Jerusalem might be spared. Others believed God had abandoned them. But many, perhaps most, had already surrendered to doubt. Their faith had not just cracked, it had shattered. Israel had not only lost a war, it had lost its purpose. It had betrayed the covenant, and perhaps worst of all, it had forgotten how to believe. And then, on the day Ezekiel turned 30, the very age he would have stepped into the priesthood back in Jerusalem, God broke the silence. After years of silence in exile, the heavens opened and the word of the Lord came to him. But it was not a word of comfort. It was a vision unlike anything he had seen before, a valley filled with bones, dry, scattered, lifeless, and God asked him, "Son of man, can these bones live?" Ezekiel 37:3. This was more than a vision. It was a message to a broken people and to generations yet to come. Because the valley of dry bones was not just about ancient Israel. It was a prophecy echoing across time, a revelation of death, rebirth, and ultimate destiny. This vision would become one of the most powerful images in biblical prophecy, a symbol of national resurrection, spiritual revival, and the end-time promise that God is not finished with his people. And here's the mystery. Many believe that part of this vision has already come to pass. Israel, the nation that disappeared from history, has returned. A people once scattered across the earth, exiled for centuries, are now back in their land. It seemed impossible, but it was foretold. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. I will open your graves and bring you up from them, my people, and I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Ezekiel 37:12. But the prophecy of Ezekiel does not end with return. It ends with a breath, with the Spirit of God filling the bones, giving them life, raising an army, and that final breath is still to come. What does this mean for our generation? It means we are watching prophecy unfold in real time. Every event in the Middle East, every war, every alliance, every threat, it's not random, it's prophetic. Israel is not just another nation, it is the clock by which God tells time, and the ticking is getting louder. We are living in the days when ancient words come alive, when Ezekiel's valley is no longer just a vision, but a warning, a revelation, a call to awaken. Can these bones live again? Stay with us, because the answer to that question will shake the nations. And the end is closer than we think. A roaring wind tore across the heavens. Thunder cracked like the voice of judgment, and from the storm came a cloud ablaze with fire. In its midst, something otherworldly. 4 living creatures, radiant and terrifying. Each had 4 faces, a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. Their wings stretched outward, their feet gleamed like polished bronze. Wheels within wheels spun beside them, covered in countless eyes, watching, turning, but never turning aside. It was not just a vision, it was the glory of God, leaving the temple. In the heart of exile on enemy soil, the presence of the Almighty had descended, not in peace, but in power. Then the voice spoke, "Son of man, stand up on your feet, and I will speak to you." Ezekiel 2:1. But Ezekiel, overwhelmed by what he saw, collapsed in fear. This was not the beginning he had imagined, not the priesthood he had trained for. And yet, from that place of awe and trembling, God placed a scroll in his hand. It was filled with mourning, lamentation, and woe. And yet, when Ezekiel obeyed and ate it, the taste was sweet, like honey on his tongue. Ezekiel 3:3. From that moment, Ezekiel became something more than a prophet. He became a watchman, not in a palace or a temple, but among ruins, among people who no longer wanted to listen. His was the strangest mission a prophet had ever received. He was called not only to speak, but to live the message. His body would become the sermon. God told him to lie on his side for 390 days. Each day symbolizing a year of Israel's sin. Then 40 more days for Judah. He was to eat bread rationed by weight, baked over dung, representing the starvation that would soon strike Jerusalem. Ezekiel 4:9-15. He shaved his head with a sword, dividing the hair into thirds, burning one part, striking another with the blade, and casting the rest to the wind. These were signs, warnings of judgment, of destruction, of a people whose hearts had turned cold. Then came the most agonizing command. "The delight of your eyes will be taken from you with a single blow, yet you shall not mourn or weep." Ezekiel 24:16-17. And just as the Lord said, Ezekiel's wife, the one he loved, died, and he did not cry. Because the fall of Jerusalem would be just like that, sudden, brutal, and without time to grieve. There would be no comfort, only silence. Ezekiel had lost everything, his home, his temple, his beloved. But in that place of complete desolation, God gave him something extraordinary, a vision. The Spirit of the Lord lifted him and set him down in the middle of a vast valley. All around him, bones, dry, brittle, lifeless, scattered across the earth like ancient ruins forgotten by time. And then the voice came again, "Son of man, can these bones live?" Ezekiel 37:3. What Ezekiel saw was more than a graveyard. It was Israel, exiled, broken, faithless, and forgotten. A nation that once bore the name of the living God, now reduced to dust. No life, no hope, but God had not forgotten. "Prophesy to these bones," God said. "Say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life." Ezekiel 37:4-5. And the bones began to rattle. They came together, bone to bone, flesh covered them. And then breath entered. The Spirit moved, and what once was dead stood up, a vast army. This was not just about Ezekiel's time. This was a vision that echoed into our time, a prophecy about the rebirth of a people, the restoration of a nation, and the countdown to the final days. Because Israel would rise again, and it did. After thousands of years scattered among the nations, after the horrors of war and exile, the impossible happened. In 1948, the dry bones stood. Israel was reborn, just as Ezekiel had seen. But the vision is not over. God's breath, His Spirit, will return again, and when it does, the final act of prophecy will unfold. The nations will gather, wars will rise. The battle lines of Ezekiel 38 and 39 are being drawn before our eyes. This is not just history, this is destiny. And the question still echoes in our generation. Can these bones live? We are living in prophetic days. We are watching the Bible come to life on the evening news. The time is short. The signs are clear. The valley is stirring again. So what do you think? Are we seeing the final breath before the return of the King? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Let the world know the vision is not a myth. It's a warning, and the end is closer than we imagine. There, in the silence of the valley, God asked a question that would pierce through time. A question that shook not just the prophet, but every soul who would one day hear these words. Son of man, can these bones live? Logic whispered, no. Hope had long since died. But Ezekiel, moved by something deeper than sight, answered with faith, Sovereign Lord, only you know. Ezekiel 37:3. Then came the impossible command, prophesy to these bones. He could have hesitated, but Ezekiel obeyed, and as his voice echoed across the valley, something extraordinary began to happen. The earth rumbled, bones began to shift, they scraped across the dust, seeking their place. Rib cages reformed, vertebrae aligned, skull met spine. A great rattling filled the air as the skeletal remains of a long-dead people came back together. Then, tendons stretched across them, muscles formed and skin wrapped around the bodies. But they still lay motionless, lifeless. God was not done. Prophecy to the breath, he said. Call the wind from the four corners. Call the RUACH, the Spirit. Ezekiel 37:9. And just like in Eden, when God breathed life into Adam, the Spirit of God entered those bodies. Breath filled their lungs. And they stood, alive, awake, a vast army, a people reborn from the grave. But God left no room for confusion. He gave Ezekiel the meaning plainly. These bones are the whole house of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up, our hope is gone. But I will open their graves and bring them up. I will return them to the land of Israel. I will put my Spirit in them, and they will live. Ezekiel 37:11-14. This prophecy wasn't just poetic. It was a map of the past, the present, and the future. The valley represented exile, the bones, a scattered, spiritually dead nation, a people erased from history. But God gave a promise of resurrection. First came the noise, the physical return. Then came flesh, the political rebuilding. But the final part, the breath, the Spirit, was still to come. For nearly 2,000 years, this seemed unthinkable. In 70 AD, the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and the Second Temple. Israel ceased to exist. The Jewish people were scattered across the earth, persecuted, rejected, hunted. The world called them forgotten, but they were never forgotten by God. At every Passover in exile, the Jewish people whispered the same hope, next year in Jerusalem. And then, on May 14, 1948, after the fires of the Holocaust, a declaration was made. The State of Israel is born. For the first time in 2 millennia, the people had returned to their land. The bones had come together. The vision of Ezekiel had begun to unfold. Literally, Hebrew, once considered a dead language, was alive again on the lips of millions. The desert bloomed. The land flourished. Israel became a nation once more. But even now, something is missing. The final phase, the Spirit, is yet to fall. The RUACH of God has not yet been poured out upon the entire nation. Israel, though physically restored, has not yet recognized her Messiah. But the prophets have already spoken of what's to come. Joel wrote, "And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my Spirit on all flesh." Joel 2:28. Zechariah foresaw a broken moment of revelation. "They will look upon me, the one they have pierced, and mourn for him." Zechariah 12:10. And Paul declared with confidence, "A partial hardening has come upon Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in, and then all Israel will be saved." Romans 11:25-26. The countdown has already begun. Ezekiel didn't just see the resurrection, he saw the war. Immediately after the Valley of Dry Bones, Ezekiel was shown a global conflict. A leader named Gog from the land of Magog will rise and lead a coalition against Israel. Real nations are named: Persia, modern-day Iran, Cush, Sudan, Put, Libya, Gomer, and Togarmah, Turkey. They will come against a nation restored, unprotected, living securely. But God will not stay silent. "I will put hooks in your jaws," says the Lord, "and bring you against my land, so that the nations may know me." Ezekiel 38:4-16. And then chaos will erupt. Earthquakes, fire from heaven, divine intervention. God himself will defend Israel, because Israel is not just a place. It's not just history. It is God's prophetic clock. It is where the Messiah was rejected, and it is where he will return. Jesus said, "When the fig tree blossoms, you know that summer is near." Matthew 24:32. In 1948, the fig tree blossomed. The countdown began. And now we are watching the final pages of prophecy turn before our very eyes. So we ask you, do you believe what you're seeing? Are we witnessing the fulfillment of the end? Or is this the beginning of eternity? Let us know in the comments. What do you believe about the destiny of Israel? Have the dry bones begun to rise again? If you want to understand who the true people of Israel are and whether they are still the chosen people of God, watch the next video that's now on your screen. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because history isn't over. It's unfolding right now before our eyes. We are not watching the end of the world. We are witnessing the beginning of something eternal.